Welcome to my blog. Today I want to talk about youth labor and government regulations. I opened my computer this morning and I see that one of the major supermarket chains in Denmark no longer will employ youth labor. It's not because the youth are useless, it's not because they're lazy, it's not because they don't show up on time. No, it's because they carry a huge load of regulations on them. In Denmark, when you employ workers from 13 to 15, you have the government looking over you heavily to make sure that you comply with this, that and the other. And now at this point it becomes so burdensome and so much risk involved in hiring these young people that the supermarket chain have simply thrown in a towel and said, you know what, we give up. From now on it's from 15 years and up. Stuff like this is not only in Denmark, it's not only in Europe. All this is creeping into America as well. And it's been creeping for a long time. For 20 years we've been seeing more and more stuff like that coming to America, and it really have limited the American society in many ways. Of course, there's a big difference in Denmark and in Europe. It's usually the government who sends out workers, fines you and slap you on the hands if you don't comply with the rules, and they'll always find something that will cost you some money. So a lot of people that take the consequence, we won't touch the youth labor any longer. Here in America, it's not the government agencies, it's the private attorneys who sit and they look for small errors, small mistakes at business, and they sue you. And that's the way the law is being upheld, so to say. That's the way the lawyers extract money from the employees. But I want to get to the bigger point, and to get to that, I want to tell my own story. When I was a young boy, only 13 years old, I got a job. My neighbor, they had a blacksmith workshop, 8 employees, and they needed a guy to clean the floor and clean up the mess and take care of the old iron and clean up the saw and all that, and just, you know. So I got a job. It was my neighbor. They know me since I was a child. So I got this job, and they paid me back then. They paid me $4 an hour. To me, as a 13-year-old, that was a fortune. You know, if you worked 3 hours, you got $12. And back then, a soda cost $1 and candy cost 10 cents. So I felt like a freaking millionaire. The excitement, the joy to go to work and make money. You know, you were able to make $20 in one day. You know, it was an amazing feeling to get there. So, and I learned that on my own body very young. At the same time, it was tough. You know, I kind of, when I knew I had a 5-hour day ahead of me, I was, oh fuck, I don't want to do this. It's gonna be this, that, and the other. I really didn't like it. You know, I didn't like to work. It was hard. So I learned the fear of hard work and the love of the reward. I learned that at an early age. Of course, in hindsight, I was not at much use at this factory. You know, I was a young boy. I didn't have the skills. They paid me $4 an hour, and in hindsight, it was pure charity. You know, I didn't create any value for these people. They did it as a social obligation to take care of the youth, and they known my whole life. And today I'm very, very grateful that they took me in and they spent $4 on me an hour. I was not worth $4 an hour, but they paid me that anyway. And I'm not even sure if it was because of regulation back then. I don't think so. But my point is that when I worked that job 4 hours a week, on average 2 hours a day, I learned so much. I learned it early on. I learned the desire to make money. I learned to save, and I learned to work. And one more thing that I learned from it was very important is I learned that I have to concentrate in school. I have to figure out a way not to use these my whole life, because it's tough to pick up cold iron and put it in a dumpster. So I learned early on, you better pay attention in math class, in history. You better pay attention so you can lift yourself out of manual labor, because manual labor, that's not fun. And that was an important lesson I learned as a young man. Today I'm very, very grateful for that lesson. In the society today, in the Western world, we take that away from young people. One thing is we take the money away from them, and we all do it in the name of protection. We want to protect the youth from exploitation. You know, that's what they say. But there's no exploitation. That's not what it's about. It's education. It's education of the next generation. And you know, the word is always, education is the most important thing in the world. It's the next generation that are going to carry our society. And it's true. You know, apart from defense, water, and food, the most important thing in the world is education of the next generation. And I had a great education working at that blacksmith factory when I was young. We're taking that away now in the name of protection because we want to protect the young people. We're not protecting the young people. We are destroying the young people. And I think this is going to be detrimental to us. And we already see it now. We hear stories about people coming into the labor market at age 22. They don't know a thing. They have no fear of God. They don't respect their boss. They don't do anything because they haven't felt the pain on their own body of working hard. They haven't felt the reward of making their own money. Somebody hands you $20. What if you make $20? It's a completely different feeling. We're taking that away now. Of course, I'm not talking about youth labor like back in the day, like 100 years ago. The kids, they worked back then because we needed the work. We needed the labor. Back in 100 years ago, or even 50 years ago, kids in my part of the world, they got off from school for a week because they had to help their parents on the farm getting the potatoes out of the ground. So we actually had a national holiday for a week in the late fall where we picked up the potatoes. It's called the potato holiday. We had that in a lot of part of Europe. And of course, that's a great thing. It's a great thing that you learn that. But we don't want to get back to the situation where we have child labor or exploitation of young. But remember, it's not government rules that solve that problem. The reason we do not have child labor any longer in Europe or in America, or youth labor for 40 or 50 hours a week, or the reason we don't have that as they have it in Bangladesh now, in some parts of China and India, the reason for that is capitalism. It's because we let free market, free thinking, free idea, free profit seeking make industry so efficient that we don't need the child labor anymore. We don't need the youth labor anymore. Youth labor now is not for the enrichment of the society. Youth labor is for education of the young so they can compete, so they can learn. And you gotta believe me when I'm saying the most important lessons that I got in my life was not in school, not in high school, not in college, and I've been there. I went to the master's degrees in Copenhagen Business School. You know what? It's BS. You learn nothing. What I learned the most was at that job. I was very lucky growing up with parents that took time to teach me life, learn me hard work, and they told me, think, save, be smart. I was very lucky about that. Not all have those parents, but I won that lottery somehow. But besides of that, my jobs when I was a young man, even a child, so to say, it really transformed my life, and we're taking that away now in the Western world. Of course, in China, where I spend a lot of times, and the other so-called developing nation, it's not like this any longer. When people, they come into the labor market over there, they go to school, they work, they hustle. They hustle in the good sense. They don't cheat. They hustle, they work, they study, they enrich, they learn how to save, they learn how to get up in the morning, and they learn how to go to work. Work hard, wash their hands, take on nice clothes, go to school, study, go to sleep, and repeat. That's the way you build a good person, and that's the way you build a great society. You do not build a great society by protecting kids, by protecting youth, and having government employees coming out and checking, is this right? Do they have the right shoes? Is this safe for them? Do we have safety glasses? It's just completely crazy. We're destroying our country, and for the individual, it's a disaster. For the country, it's a disaster. And even worse, for the future, we are letting the new part of the world, and I'm not saying that because they are our enemies, they are definitely not, but we are receding on the world. The Western world will no longer be in charge if we continue this way. And believe me, you probably think, oh, it's not a big deal to be in charge and we can all get along. No, it is nice to be in charge. It's nice to be the smartest, the richest, with the most savings. It is nice to be that way. And if we are continuing down the path we are now, this is just another nail in the coffin that you can't have youth working in a retail store any longer. And like I said, it's not only a European phenomenon, it's right here in God's own country in America, and we gotta reverse course on that. That's all for today. Thank you very much.